about an hour, and we will have interactive session for another 15 minutes, and then we will have a subsequent session the same way. Okay. Feel free to interact, feel free to discuss. So we will be looking at what is good reading, good writing, and good understanding. Even though we will be discussing it independently, they are really not independent. Kindly mute. Okay, so I come from a strong science and engineering background, even though for a considerable amount of time I have spent time on social sciences and management. And I have reasonable reading, writing, and understanding skills. So I thought I'll just share this with you people. So the outline of the presentation is what is it that we really read? What do we mean by good reading? What are the characteristics of a good reader? All of us read. Many of us are forced to read, particularly in a formal academic system. But what do we mean by a good reader? Subsequently, we will look at how or why we write. Why is it that we wish to write, or why is it that we today the new disease of publishing? Okay. How do we know a writing is good? More importantly, how to write well and effective. We may not be able to do a very good writing, but at least we should be able to write well, and which is also very effective. Consequently, what is it? What do we mean by understanding? What do you mean when you say you understood something? And we will also see how difficult it is to understand. Even understanding a conversation is quite challenging many times. And what do we mean by understanding very well? Okay. When do you say you have understood it well? Like typically we ask our students, have you understood? And most of them nod their head and we think they have understood. When you discuss, we get to know that they have not understood as well. Rarely when we say we met a scholar, what does a scholar mean? Scholar is somebody who he or she has understood a given topic or area at depth, at breadth, in a very subtle way, which even an average good reader would miss. Okay, we will look at all these things. Okay, so first thing, what do we read? Okay, most of us read these things. Okay, magazines and news. News stands for North, East, West, South, meaning it just collects information from all directions, the four cardinal directions, which almost means, of course, that idea those days was that the earth is flat. So North, East, West, South clearly meant a flat world, but it still is valid for a circular world. Okay. And this is really what people read. I do know many people don't get newspapers home, but they get Economic Times. So many others get very particular magazines like Reader's Digest or Time, and this is also in vernacular. All said and done, the vernacular media is 10 times bigger than the English media, even though the visibility and the decision making seems to be with what goes on in the English media, clearly saying that the bureaucracy and academics is definitely highly influenced by what is written in English. Okay. Not surprising, I'm talking to you in English today. Okay. Of course, this is a pan-India program, and the only acceptable language of communication is English, because Hindi is not only difficult for us, much of the states don't follow Hindi as well as they follow English, okay, at least in the academic circles, okay. So this is what we read. What do we get out of this? It's little beyond time pass, okay. So if you really read a newspaper today, we most of us do, or we watch news on the media. Uh, there is, in fact, considerable difference between today's news and tomorrow's news, meaning what was valid news today can actually become invalid tomorrow. Like we have seen, the exit poll saying somebody will win, and when the actual results came, the opposite party seems to have won. Okay, so which means the news given to us yesterday is not only false, it's invalid today. So this is our problem, meaning we do need knowledge and information update, but a large amount of news seems to be very transient. Okay. But we do spend a lot of time on this, and this is definitely needed, but this is not good reading. This is just more out of anxiety, curiosity, and following certain events rather than building our repository of knowledge. Okay. You get things up to date. You can share this with others. After all, one moment you go to university or college, some key news in the headlines is discussed with your colleagues. Oh, it happened like this, it seems, etc., etc. But that's it. It has no, you can't use that in the classroom. And after a year, you will not even remember what it was. So it is reading, but not necessarily good reading. Okay. So why do we read? Many other reasons. To know what's going on. Yeah. We need to know what's going on, because unlike historical times, the world is very well connected today. It's globally connected in some sense, meaning what goes on in Japan today may have an impact on us by evening. It's really, you can see that Indian, and in fact the entire global stock market has gone down simply because they are not sure who will win the election in America day after tomorrow morning. Today already stock market and others are going haywire and crazy simply because they know that there is an uncertainty about a certain event. Now you must find it very strange. Why should the election in America disturb us here? This is what is globalization. Okay. Earlier it was not happening. Even 20 years back, such phenomena was not happening. And many times it is also bidirectional, meaning depending on who wins in India, there is definitely not the same quantity of impact, but definitely reasonable impact on others. So this is a consequence of globalization. Somebody gets cold and fever in America, you will get malaria and flu here. Okay, so this is but expected when you globalize, meaning there are negative sides to globalization too. Okay. The other thing is to know the state of the country or earth. We want to know where floods have happened. For example, the last 3 days, those who have been following, there's a massive flood in Spain. And it is so bad that the king and queen of Spain, when they went to visit the places where the flood had impacted people, many of them threw stones at them, saying, "Get out! Why do you want to come and come here and show your face?" That's the kind of thing. Okay. It's also time pass. For example, the classic advertisement for Deccan Herald is Mysore filter coffee with Deccan Herald, which starts the day for most elite people in Bangalore. At least it used to be like that. Okay. We also want to catch up with sports and politics. All these phenomena is much before the advent of TV and online broadcast, but still is valid. And many people spend time reading about games and cooking, particularly today's so many recipes. In fact, there are some books and magazines and small newsletters which cover everyday recipe. There are also special Sunday supplements which give detailed issue about certain themes, travel, and etc. etc. Many serious readers, I'm not saying it's good reading, I'm saying serious readers follow the editorial or a particular columnist. Okay. So that's one reason why many publishing houses want an exceedingly popular editor. So the editorial is far more mature news and information as compared to those reported by news reporters and those that happen in public. And many people actually follow a particular columnist. For example, the American newspapers used to regularly follow him, which is also copied in Indian newspapers like Deccan Herald and others. Well, Paul Krugman had a column, weekly column on economics, and not surprising the kind of issues he was raising and working. He eventually won the Nobel Prize in economics. Okay, so many of us follow that, and basically we do that to share our perception and our opinion. After all of us have our own opinion. Right or wrong is different. We have our own perception in life about events and personalities, and we share it. This part of the conversation and the gossip that goes around, both of which are important. Conversation is important. Gossip is also important. Please remember, it is long years of gossip that has kept many of the nice things going on in our life. Okay. 90% of gossip is gossip, meaning it has no long-term value, but the 10% there that goes around as gossip is one that has sustained years and years of humanity. And many of us also want to give our opinion as letters to the editor in the newspaper, which is one open space which is available for us. It's not that every letter that is communicated is printed, but a letter relevant to the contemporary themes or a very perceptive view of things is printed. Okay. For example, it need not just be reading printed matter. It could even be graphic. For example, the whole of uh, uh, Maharashtra, particularly the time when I spent 7 years in 6 years in IIT Bombay. What is common is whether the English Times of India edition or the Maharashtra Times, the Marathi edition of Times of India, very popular. Everybody would take the newspaper just to see the R.K. Lakshman's cartoon. That cartoon for the day more or less gave them the idea of what is going on around the world or what is important in this world for that day. Okay. So in fact, I won't be surprised to say that almost 30-40% of the sales of Times of India, Navbharat Times, that Maharashtra Times, all that would only go because of R.K. Lakshman's cartoon for the day. Okay. So it is such powerful, the media. Okay. We also read textbooks as teachers. Okay. We read as researchers, and many students read books today very little for examination. Okay. We read as teachers most of the time a prescribed book. We as researchers, we read books which are not necessarily prescribed or not necessarily popular. They have a different viewpoint. Okay. And the students read more than textbooks. They read guides which are diluted versions and question answer oriented type of material that is otherwise directly not found in the textbook. Okay. We also read other books. Many times we read books which are not prescribed because these books are better than the ones that are prescribed. Books prescribed for classes and coursework are mostly popular books rather than good books. And today it is mostly commercially viable books like low level notes and guides. And we also read others' books. That is, we also want to read others' opinion about things. Okay. We also want to know others' viewpoint. For example, the best way to learn is, uh, do you realize that the history that we read is predominantly winners' history? Nobody prints losers' history, right? It's invariably the winner's history that is written. And the best classic example is World War II history, where they say Hitler was notorious and so he was defeated. And among the heroes was Stalin. But what people don't know is Stalin was 100 times worse than Hitler. Okay. But it's never mentioned in any book because Stalin was on the winner's side. Okay. So it is always good to read others' viewpoint, mainly to enhance our understanding or better our learning. After all, when we learn, we want to understand, meaning we want to know the real truth, not the truth that is portrayed. Okay. We also read for entertainment. Large amount of reading is entertainment, like comics, and that comics is not limited to children alone. Even adults enjoy comics because comics have a flavor of satire and humor, which we badly need in our life because we have 100 reasons to be unhappy. Okay. We also read to improve on a skill. For example, the chess. Almost every weekend, we have a very good chess columns in newspapers portraying exceedingly interesting matches, maybe 100 years back, which was played, and it's not in anybody's memory. And there are also weekly bridge columns, which is another worldwide famous game. Many of us read and spend time to improve our vocabulary, language, and grammar by doing crosswords. And, today, crosswords are in all languages. For a long time, crosswords were only in English, but today, crosswords are there in all the languages and they are exceedingly good to build vocabulary, the language, and also the grammar. Okay. What else we read? We also read short stories, classics, and our favorite authors. So over a period of time, we develop certain favorite authors and we buy and read and borrow, and whatever we do, we keep following it. Uh, Not necessarily that our favorite author writes consistently well all the time. Okay. Some have special tastes. For example, obsessed with spy and crime stories, which keeps people very engrossed, uh, like all the Sherlock Holmes stories and all that. Okay. Very few of us read poetry. Poetry is a lot more challenging to read. It is even more challenging to understand because to enjoy poetry, you cannot be very rigid because many times beautiful poetry also makes an intended grammatical mistake just to enhance the beauty and understanding of certain phrases. Okay. So I'm not saying reading prose is superior to reading poetry, etc., but very few of us actually enjoy reading poetry. Okay. Reading and enjoying poetry is more special and has different training and bent of mind because it is beyond rhyme and reason. Okay, beyond rhyme and reason. Sometimes certain phrases in poetry is absurd. It has no valid reason, but it's so beautiful. It's just fits the context in which the writer was trying to portray. Okay. Most important is this: choice of reading is always subjective. What I like, you may not like. What you like, I may not like. In fact, it is so subjective that you can have 100 people in the class exactly liking 100 different things and not having anything common with the other. So, this is where we need to be very cautious, because it's not that my liking is the best. Everybody has their own style and taste and feel and emotionally connected with type of reading. Curriculum, however, makes some compulsory reading, which may not always be the best choice. All of us are forced to read certain books which are prescribed as part of the curriculum. And invariably, I'm not saying everywhere, but in almost 90% of the academic system in the world, the books that are forced to be read by both teachers and students is not necessarily the best book for that subject. Okay, but there are so many factors: affordability, accessibility, usability. So many things are there before the books are actually prescribed, and it's not necessarily the best is prescribed, but we are forced to read. So one of the conclusions we can draw is a lot of reading that we do today is neither serious, like the newspapers and other magazines, nor the textbooks that we use for classroom teaching. Or so a large amount of our time we spend effort and use up our mental resources in not necessarily good and valuable reading. So we will now come to what could be good and valuable reading. Okay, so first let's understand what do we mean by good readers. Basically, good readers use different skills. It's not just monotonic reading. Good readers read text in different ways, looking at the layout and headings and reading quickly to get a general feel for the text. That is one pass, skimming before reading more intensively or find specific details. So skim and scan. Okay. We just glance through and see if there is anything particular that catches our attention and focus on that. Many times, while doing this second part, we understand that we should have actually scanned everything. That is good writing. Good writing tells you that you cannot be skimming. You have to scan the whole thing and read in more seriousness. Okay. For example, newspapers, we just scan only when we come to some detail, some specific thing, we may pay a little more attention. And we say, oh, I read that. There is nothing much in that kind of thing. So, this is both a reflection of good writing and reading. Okay. Please mute. Please mute all of you. Yeah. Good readers guess the meaning of words they don't know. That's exactly how you improve. You have come across a word which is not in your vocabulary, and from the sentence there, possibly the next sentence, possibly the previous sentence or two, you try to guess what could be the meaning for the new word. And that's exactly how you not only learn more, you also become more refined in your usage of language. Okay, that's exactly how what good reading is. A good reader is often able to guess the meaning of an unknown word. Learners who know to look for clues in the text are more able to work out the meaning of new words and continue reading independently. Some of us, a good reader, not only does this, when they don't understand, good reader always has a dictionary. Earlier, it used to be a printed dictionary. Today, you have online dictionaries. It gives you all the synonyms, etc., etc. But this is it. Good readers reflect on what they read. It's not that reading for the sake of completion. This is what happens for most of us, compulsively asked to read something for the sake of seminar or exam. We don't reflect on what we read. We read because we want to say we have read. When you ask a question, did you read that paragraph or did you read that chapter in that book? Almost every student says, yes, I read. It's only when you probe further, you will find out that they have read. It's not that they have not read. They have read. They haven't understood well, much less reflect on what they read. Okay. Good readers think about what they read and make a note of new vocabulary, reflecting on what they like, what they learn, and want to know more about helps readers to make a sense of a text, generating curiosity and motivation to read more. This is what is good reading. Good reading means comma, not a full stop. The good reading means if you ask a student, did you read that paragraph or chapter? A good reader would say, yes, I read that, but I ended up reading two more chapters. I read another chapter of another book where something is told like this, which clearly means that the student has satisfied a certain degree of curiosity and that reading has motivated him to read other things. It is not a full stop, it is a comma. The moment it is a full stop, did you read it? Yes, I read it. It means very superficial, shallow reading, reading for the sake of reading, not for enjoyment, not for improvement, not for understanding. So, who is a good reader then? A good reader is one who understands the writer's intent, gains maximum knowledge from the text, and retains it in memory. And most importantly, a good reader is someone who keeps reading. So you need to understand what the writer was trying to tell, not what the writer told. What the writer told is in the book which you are reading, but what he or she was trying to tell, what was the writer's intent in writing that, which is almost saying the classical phrase of stepping into the other's shoe. How do you understand the other person? Only when you are in his position. Then you will understand him or her very well. That's what is called stepping into the other's shoe. Okay? Very rare, very difficult, let me tell you. We sympathize people when they are in difficulty, but we don't empathize. Empathy means you become that fellow and experience the difficulty that he or she is undergoing. Of course, not physically, but you understand what is the real pain, real need, real concern, real anxiety of that person. Sympathizing is necessary, but not enough. Okay? Reading may not seem like a skill we need to master. After all, we have been doing it since preschool. Yes, we have all been reading, but we are not good readers. We are all readers. We are not good readers. Effective reading is a problem for most of us. Skimming past a magazine is easy, but can you remember the exact headline of the article you are reading? A survey in United States found 38% of independent readers are better achievers due to their high skill set. That's what it is. Good reading is always an asset. The earlier, when you wanted to identify a scholar or a desirable teacher or something like that, one of the phrases people used to use was, he's well read. What do we mean by he is well read? He or she is well read. He or she is well read means person is not only a good reader, They have read many things which were not necessary for their daily life or their daily profession. One of the best examples that comes to my mind is the Nobel laureate S. Chandrasekhar, the physicist Nobel laureate, astrophysicist. I also had a opportunity to hear him and meet him. What is remarkable about his writing is he's outstanding as a physicist, exceedingly good in English literature. I mean, he can actually give a course on Shakespeare if anybody asks. He's very good in Western classical music, so he has tremendous depth about and having understood Western classical music. And all this Western classical music and English literature was not needed for him to do well in physics. But because he had that interest and he cultivated that, he expressed physics better than other physicists. So his writing was more effective because these things influenced him. That's really what we mean by independent readers. Okay. To be a good reader, you need to learn what the words mean. Not only is a good reader attentive while going through writing, but they also pay attention to little details a mediocre reader usually misses. Although effective reading goes hand in hand with learning, only someone specializing in going through data and difficult to comprehend information can truly keep discovering interesting things. Okay. So, what are the qualities? The many qualities. Well, the first one is reflects on the text. A promising reader does not read but also understand the meaning, intent, and message behind the sentence. Learns as they read. A brilliant reader is always looking for new things to learn. In fact, 42% of French people think that reading leads to discovering and learning new things. It expands the vocabulary, obvious. The more you read, the better is your vocabulary. Okay. Each focused reading session adds a few new words. For example, you can make a task for yourself. Take a book. Obviously, you can take something which interests you or you're curious about. Read one page and just note down. Take pen and pencil. Note down in a sheet of paper what are the one or two new words that you encountered in that page, what it means. If you do that, the next time you don't have to do that. It's already in your memory. You have accumulated that and you may be able to use it frequently. Okay. Sharpens their brain. This is amazing. Okay. Reading, when done right, can be an effective exercise for your brain muscles. You can guess the meaning of new words using the reference to context. Alternatively, reading a book and recalling the lines after some time can be a fun memory game. This is one thing that we find 99% of the people that I know, and there's also statistics to show that 99% of the people above 85, 90 years who don't have dementia are people who have been reading very well in their life continuously. Sharpens their brain. Okay. When reading something new, your brain creates new neurons and strengthens the old one. It boosts your memory and concentration. Thus, reading is beneficial for brain functions. Very important because you will face all this after you retire. When you retire, there is no compulsion for you to read. And the only need for reading then is to time pass because you are bored. There are two bad things. You cannot read because you are bored, and you cannot read things which will not sharpen your mind and your brain. Okay. In fact, very strange coincidence. Last week, I took a 94-year-old man. He's in his 95th year now. I took him for a day outing because he wanted to visit some interesting excavation work going on in the forest about 150 kilometers from where I live. This man was continuously talking from morning 10:30 to evening 4:30 about the subject matter. Plus, intermittently, whenever somebody did something, he would say, "Oh, this very similar thing is there in that Woodhouse book, in that story," and something else. Continuously, he at least mentioned about 15 different books throughout the day, which we have never encountered, and he's 95 years. He's as sharp as a 20-year-old boy when it comes to reading, writing, and speaking. The only reason is he's continuously reading, okay, new and interesting things. Again, fifth characteristic is gets through complicated writings. So I'm not saying that complicated writing is superior, but many times writings are quite complicated, particularly in multidisciplinary subjects. And if you understand that, you understand the complexity. After all, there are so many things in life which are very complex. So many contexts are very complex. For example, our Indian politics. I don't know if there is anybody who actually understands Indian politics because it's extremely complex. It's not like American politics. Indian politics is extremely complex. Okay. So that's one. For example, do you face difficulty reading a scientific paper? Learn the right technique for reading complex text here. There are such links are available. But one of the reasons we find doing research difficult because good research papers are generally fairly complex to read and understand. Only when you read it half a dozen times, you break it down to each paragraph, go through, discuss with others, etc. And after maybe when you're about to submit your thesis, you will understand what that paper really meant. Okay. Yeah. Good readers also read fast. Okay. Reading and understanding simultaneously shouldn't make a reader slow. Some good at reading can go through tons of writing very quickly. For example, there is a famous story about Vivekananda reading the whole of some very big encyclopedia or something overnight. And the next day, somebody asked, he quoted some page and some page number, some paragraph, all that. So that's such people are there, meaning you need to read fast because you need to cover a lot of ground. Okay. Speed reading is a need of the where you're a student trying to finish a book in a day or stay at a home, mom jotting down a recipe from YouTube channel. Reading fast and still grasping the concept is crucial. Okay. There are also speed reading tools available today. Okay. Puts different skills in reading. Reading swiftly and fruitfully. You can also read a book going through tables of content first. Okay. Instead of turning the pages, right, you will know what section of the book will provide insight you are after, etc. Reading blogs. Okay. In fact, my style of reading, I'll come to that after we finish this. Good readers also take notes. Note down what you understood, what you found it interesting, what you didn't understand, what is rewarding for you, etc. Visualize the text. Another useful technique is to visualize the words. Read the sentences and paint a picture of what the author is trying to say. These are very interesting when you read about philosophy and mythology, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. Today you have picture books, not just story books, you have picture books which tell the story graphically. And today with the media and computers, today you actually have a 3D. You can immerse yourself in a virtualized story. Okay. Predict the next part. So when you have read part of it, can you predict what the author is going to author or the correspondent is going to write the next paragraph or stuff? So when you try predicting, two things happen. If you predict correctly, it means you are able to get the feel of the writer or the author, And when you predict wrongly, what it clearly shows is that you are able to build a different scenario for the limited information given to you. Okay. Last but one relates to what they read. Another good habit of avid readers is they always relate their readings to real life. Okay. But that's one reason why many of us watch movies, because many times certain portions of the movie we can relate to things in our life. We've never had expressions of our life, but many times the movie portrays what we have experienced. So that's one reason why there is so much popularity of movies. It used to be. No wonder so many movie heroes have become chief ministers in the country. One of the reasons is those days there was no expression for people. Today there is over expression. Everybody can be on YouTube, everybody can be on Instagram, all that. So that's why the impact of movies has gone down. In another 10, 15 years, let me tell you, nobody will care for movies or movie stars because everybody is another movie star themselves. Okay. And a good reader researches more, doesn't stop at one book, one essay, dig, dive deep, explore, find out what the writer or the author got motivated, so that you can go back to the source of why he wrote like this. Also, reading more makes you a better reader. There is no doubt about that. We'll come to this point again sometime. And the conclusion on good reading. Reading is an essential skill for someone striving to be better in all worldly affairs. That's why many times you will see that, at least I think, if I'm not wrong, almost 5 to 10% of all the elected representatives in India, both member of parliament, MLAs, MLCs, Rajya Sabha MPs, all that, maybe 5 to 10% are all journalists. One of the reasons is that in they have some idea about all world affairs. Little. They are not scholarly in that, but they know little of everything. Whereas we academicians, we want to know a lot about one thing, even that we don't do it well. So we are actually ignorant of the way world runs. Okay. And not surprising that so many journalists who are all in as elected representative. In this digital world, most information is a form of words. Thus, reading efficiently and quickly is key to staying on top of your game. Okay. A good reader understands the importance of this skill and uses it to keep growing. They connect with the words, unravel their deeper meaning, learn new things, and read as much as they can in the little time we get. Okay. So historically, there was a saying, readers are leaders. That is because number of literate people were so few, so few. In a family of 20 people, one or two could read or write. In the Indian population at the turn of independence, maybe the literacy was 12.5%, and which means very few could read or write. So those days, one who could read well was declared a leader. It's like the classic saying, in a land of blind people, one-eyed man is the king. It's exactly true. There were so few readers, and those who read reasonable became leaders. Today it's not that. Today, the only hope to be a good leader is to be good reader, because many can read now. 80% of the population can read. So you cannot be a leader just because you are read. You have to be a good reader. You have to be a good reader. Okay. Again, good reading summary. An excellent reader is a combination of lot of distinct traits: speed, comprehension, depth of understanding. All three can understand a writing and recognize what the author is attempting to convey. The good reader comprehends the author's goal, derives as much information as possible, and remember, reading may not seem like a talent we need to perfect. After all, we started doing it while we were in preschool and have continued. But would you consider yourself a good reader? And reading comprehension is difficult for majority of us, meaning, can somebody read a full book and give back the essence of it in one correct sentence or 3, 4 sentences? You read Mahabharata. What can you say about Mahabharata? One sentence about Mahabharata. It is not about the war. It is not about Kauravas and Pandavas. Mahabharata is all about you. One sentence. It is all about us. Because Mahabharata war is different. But the real Mahabharata is happening in our mind all the time. It is about us. Even though it is portrayed as a war between cousins, it is actually what is happening in our mind. 100 bad things are trying to suppress 5 good things in our mind. It's a fact. You will experience it every day if you introspect. Okay. So that is what is called comprehension. You read a ton and you can correctly paraphrase it in 1 or 2 sentences. And that's also good writing. Good writing makes this happen. Good reading will make you do this. Good understanding is even much tougher. We'll come to that. Okay. Yeah. Learning the meaning of the words is necessary to improve one reading skills. A competent reader, alert when going through the literature. More importantly, readers pay attention to the minor nuances that a mediocre reader typically overlooks. Reading well is also an important component of the educational process. To constantly discover new things as a reader, you must sort through large amounts of data and information. Okay. Again, skills and attributes of a good reader. How can you tell which readers are good ones? What is common to all great readers considers the content of the text, learns when reading, boosts their vocabulary, sharpens their intellect, makes it through complex texts, reads quickly, put diverse reading abilities to use, keeps track of things, makes the text come to life in their mind's eye. This is what it is. When you read, the whole drama happens in your mind. You can visualize, you can understand, you can interpret, you can feel, you can perceive. It gives you a total understanding of the situation, possibly a reflection of yourself in that. Okay. Predicts what will happen next to the story that is happening, relates to their reading. It's not that you're reading for the first time. You read many other things. For example, you read about Mahatma Gandhi. What is the reading about Mahatma Gandhi? What is the reading about Leo Tolstoy? What is the reading about Mahabharata? What is the reading about something in vernacular? Okay. It also increases research efforts. If you are a good reader, you are not satisfied with finishing one book or article and moving on. You keep reading and learning more. The internet is a utopia for ardent readers in this regard. This is one of the best things. In fact, there are a lot of negative things about internet, but one of the best things that internet has done is it has made people access very interesting, writings all over the world. And today, thanks to online translation, even though the quality of translation is not very good, but online translation has allowed even the language barriers to be broken to understand this. For example, you may have come across a very famous writer called Gabriel Marquez, the Spanish writer in Mexico. See, Gabriel Marquez, of course, he's no more, but he deserved a Nobel Prize at least 50 years back. People who read Spanish literature told, what is all this nonsense about Nobel Prize for literature? If Gabriel Marquez has not got it, nobody should get it. How can you give to others and not give to Gabriel Marquez? The simple reason then was that Nobel Prize was given only to writings in English. That's exactly how Rabindranath Tagore got it. Rabindranath Tagore's original work was not in English, but it was in Bengali, which Yeats translated it to English, Gitanjali, and he got the Nobel Prize. Okay. Only later, late 20th century, the Nobel Committee changed the rule saying literature, Nobel Prize in literature can be given to anybody who deserves it. It's not necessarily the writing should be in English. Within a year, Gabriel Marquez got the Nobel Prize. Okay. And subsequently, half the Nobel Prize in literature has gone to people who have not written in English. So, this is really what it is. You have other reading you relate to, it increases your research effort. And to wrap it up, a student's inability to grasp a text could indicate they are reading the improper material or just lacking the necessary reading resources. To help children improve as readers, the goal should be to provide them with a chance to engage with the literature. If your pupils are struggling, it is not always a sign that they do not understand the material. There may be other elements at play. So, what is the takeaway from this session? The takeaway from this session is the following. You have to inculcate a reading habit in your students before you inculcate good reading habits in them. You need to increase your reading culture so that you become good readers. If you become good readers, your students can become readers. And some of them can be made good readers. And if you make effort to make a dozen people good readers, you yourself will become an excellent reader. And hopefully, you will not have dementia in life. Okay. I will now stop here and then we will discuss. Okay. So feel free to unmute and ask questions, interact on the about good reading, good writing.